Incorporated to construct a reduced design of the San Fernando Road landscape project. The original design had some wall monument signs. They were identifiers. They identified street names. When we brought the contract back, we left a contingency amount of $200,000 for signs to be included in that modified design. You asked us, staff, to go back and design some alternatives for you. We are presenting those for you today. I'll ask Senior Redevelopment Project Manager Bob Cadillac to walk through each of the four options and the designs.
Good afternoon, Council and agency members. Bob Cadillac, Redevelopment Agency. The options before you are attached to the back of the staff report and are four that you have a choice to make. Option one is a street wall monument sign, which is approximately 6 foot high by 6 foot wide panels, and they have a sign between them, which is identical but of a larger scale to the bus stop signs, which are already on San Fernando Road. Option two is it's entitled a street name arch, which is comprised of two columns which are identical to the bus stop columns that you see on San Fernando Road, with a street name sign between them. So that's a similar icon that we're using throughout the corridor. The third option is a street sign monolith, which is a round column, which is a single column that has the name of the street on all three sides, so that coming and going on San Fernando, you'll be able to see the street as well as see the name of your street at the end of the street. And the fourth sign is a street name sign, which is a single column, much smaller in diameter than the option three, with a metal box sign on top, which has signage which is identical to the bus stop signs, and it faces at a 45 angle each way, so the persons coming up and down San Fernando Road can see it. That one is very reminiscent of a sign that was along San Fernando Road in the 30s. It's also very similar to the signs that you see down at the transit center that just say Glendale. There are advantages and disadvantages to all of the signs we've listed for you. And I'd like to thank Public Works Engineering staff for a really good job of throwing these options together in short order and really thinking them through. I think all of them are creative, and they have options and disadvantages, and we're here to answer any questions you might have about those.
Mr. Cotero. Well, first of all, no color renderings. This is a little bit...
No color renderings.
Didn't want to spend the money on on the artwork. Then the second question is, weren't there other designs that we looked at previously? Is that...
There were other designs in the previous landscape project when the width was 7.5 feet deep. Those we couldn't pursue in this object because we only have 3.5 feet.
Yeah.
And the footers were were much larger in the previous proposals.
And who came up with these designs?
Kevin Carter and myself, and we shared them with Alan Loomis, the principal urban designer, and staff, and thought these would be placed before you for consideration.
Kevin Carter's an architect?
Kevin Carter is the project manager for Public Works Engineering.
Okay.
And he drew these.
Okay.
Mr. Yusefian?
What are these circles?
Those circles are supposed to represent wooden posts, and those are identical to the metal wooden posts that are on the bus stops on San Fernando Road. So if you go out and stand in front of the bus stops, you will see on top of the roof those round little pegs.
But they're not wood?
No, they're not. They're metal.
So this will not be wood either?
No.
Okay, it will look like that. I tend to go for option one. I remember all the drawings. I'm with her, too. I remember all the drawings, fancy drawings, very lush landscaping, a beautiful wall that kind of came up reminiscent of the old mission style with the bell and the whole bit. And so, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to get that because of one reason or another. But I almost feel like we promised people this beautiful cake, and all we're giving them a cookie. But I want to make sure it is the nicest cookie I can give them. And out of all these designs, I think the first one actually has a little bit of a mass to it compared to the last one or the one in the middle. It does give it some prominence. 6 feet, which is, I am seeing from center of post to the center of post, 6 feet is basically from end of that chair to the end of the third chair. That's pretty much giving you about 6 feet, so it's pretty small. But the way you have designed this will give you 666, so that's 18 feet.
Correct.
It's narrower than the roadway, but it's a substantial monument sign that says, hey, I'm here, this is the end of the road, and you come in. So that's why I feel a little bit more comfortable. It's closer to what we have had before. Not exactly the same. I still prefer what Mr. Quintero was referring to, but we're kind of stuck, unfortunately. We can't do what we wanted to do in the first place. So, and next time it would help if there was a lot of colors on it. Probably
Okay.
look better.
Mr. Draymond.
I wanted to hear, unfortunately, once again, I'm the odd man out because I wasn't here when this discussion initially went on. So, if it's possible, I'd like to hear about the historical significance of design option 4. Because it is reminiscent of photographs that I have seen of in the city from a previous time. I'd like to know a little about that.
Okay.
Any takers?
Okay. Don't all jump at once. I was...
Because nobody was around to see it, no.
At the time.
So what did you tell us, Bob?
They're
regarding
similar,
that?
almost
It
identical
matches
to
the train
matches
station.
the GTC train station signage. And those signs ran along the right-of-way north at the streets where the train stopped in the 30s. And so we've seen pictures of street signs that look similar to this, that said Norton or Alma or Grandview.
And these are 3-sided.
These are, they're
They're at signages on
two-sided.
2 sides.
So they're going to be at a 45 like a point, so you'll see them as you come north and south on San Fernando Road. So they actually function as street signs both to the driver and to the residents who walk down the end of their street.
And no idea of what color any of this is, or...
The column will be the same color as the bus stops, which are cream-colored. The signs will be a brown, which is the same color as the bus stops that are out there now, with white lettering. And they will be a bit larger in size than the bus stop signage, depending on which option you pick.
And are these flat-faced?
Yes,
As it shows here, there's no...
the letters are not raised.
No, I don't mean the letters. And there's no bevel, there's nothing to the wood above the sign, or... In other words, it has a slightly scalloped shape to it.
It will have the scallop shape, but it will be flat.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Quintero.
Yeah, the original design, as I remember, was more sort of Camino Real. That
Yes,
was
it
the
was.
idea, San Fernando Road, Camino Real. Even though probably technically the Camino Real was a little bit more west, but the average person wouldn't know.
A lot more west.
A lot more west, whatever. Some people may have veered off. I'm okay with one, but the graffiti is what concerns me in terms of how are we going to keep the little graffiti bandits from going around. I mean, is there going to be any special finish over the concrete or the stucco that's going to make it a lot easier to paint over it? Or
My understanding, Mr. Quintero, Member Quintero, is that it's going to be coated with Margard, which is the plastic coating which will be embedded in the material, but it's a destructive coat. Once it's marked and is taken off, you have to put the Margard back on. So it will give us a bigger surface for graffiti, we'll just have to stay on top of it.
Then for option 2, there's talk about the ivy that could grow. That would still be basically on the fence.
Correct.
Not on the monument themselves.
Correct.
It's a fence.
Both option number 2, which you're referring to, and option number 1, you will be able to see the night blooming jasmine growing on the fence behind it. So it won't just be an opening and you'll see the train tracks.
Bob, will there be any ground cover?
Yes, there'll be ground cover and there'll be low bushes in front of it as well. But we're really counting on the night blooming jasmine on the fence to grow up and really provide that block.
Is there going to be irrigation?
Yes, we're using the city's reclaimed water.
Any lights?
No,
These will not be lit?
no, they will not be lit. So,
So at night, how do you read this?
well, I think we have to work with their engineering. We could put in fluorescent letters on the signage as well as on the poles if you would pick one of those options. So the car's headlights would reflect the name Pelanconi where you see it in this example.
So instead of saying Pelanconi in white, it could be fluorescent
It
white?
could be fluorescent white,
Yeah.
so when the lights hit it at night. And in several of them, the monolithic pole will have it on 3 sides, so the cars coming and going will light it. On the triangular-shaped one, it could also have fluorescent letters put on it so that the car's lights illuminate it. The more flatter ones, it's going to be difficult to get the car's lights to hit them because they're very flat-surfaced and they face, they're parallel to the street.
Okay, but the main reason for the sign was originally so as a terminus of the street, people are coming out of the terminus, they will look and see the name of the street. It was identified more than just a sign type of a
Yes.
thing. And you're going to put something on the pole, so no guarantees people won't run to it. Some people actually, that fluorescent will attract them to it. But
Originally, we were trying to provide the residents who live on those intersecting streets an icon
Right.
at the end of their street and something to look at that would block the trains.
Right.
And of course, that's all changed with the reduction of the project, but I still think that all 4 of them, although they all have their benefits and disadvantages, are unique and would at least provide some signage.
Mr. Cadillac, are these signs exempt from the Uniform Street Sign program that Steve Zern came before us to ask for some CIP money for?
I'm not sure, Mayor Najarian.
Are we exempt?
I don't believe these are the traffic control type of signs that would be included, such as yield right-of-way, stop signs, street signs, the street signs that you find on the poles at intersections.
And
There's markers.
Mr. Zern referenced CIP is the standard street signs on the corner.
Right.
and those still will be there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what we have a program to replace, to upgrade.
Mr.
These as decorative
Just a quick
markers.
question. Does anyone know, I don't know if you know, what is the height of a standard street sign?
I believe it's 8 feet minimum to the bottom of it,
City engineer is saying 8 feet.
8 feet.
so you don't hit your head.
Thank you.
Okay, well, what's,
I've been waiting about 10 minutes to say so. I had my hand up. I do not support option 1 because of your report, which says it's going to require frequent painting, and it's a target for graffiti. We certainly don't need that. Least expensive is number 4. It says the simplest, least expensive, easiest to relocate, minimal flat surface for graffiti, has the minimal impacts on the project landscaping and the irrigation. So, to me, economics plays a role in it, so I support option 4.
Mr. Draymond?
Well, I like option 4 and option 1. The reason I think I will support option 4 is the following. When I first began to hear about this project after coming to the council, it was just as I was also finding out that the project as originally proposed was not going to happen. At that point, with the kind of landscaping we would have been talking about, I would have supported option 1. I think at this stage it would become all about the the signage. I think it's just too much, I would support option 4 because it is a little bit of less is more. It also has a sort of historic connection to it. I agree that it's more easily relocated, replaced probably as well, and still serves the same purpose. I don't think it should be all about the sign and more about the landscaping. I don't support option 3. It's sort of a pylon, and I don't care for that look. And option 2, if I were going to go that route, I would just go for option 1. But to me, it looks, the very fact that it is so much like the bus enclosure is the reason I probably wouldn't go that way. So I think at this point, I'm looking at option 4. But, Mr. Mayor, I would like to also say this. I feel uneasy casting the vote at all because I believe that when we're going to spend any money for a project like this that's going to directly impact a neighborhood, the end of a street, and it's also kind of a gateway marker anyway, that we should be looking at these in color, a rendering in color that has the landscaping surrounding it. It's highly likely, I mean, I can cast a vote today, but it's just as likely I might have picked one of the other models based on how it integrated with the landscaping, and I can't tell that by looking at a flat drawing like this. And all of these, frankly, look very flat, to be very honest with you. So if I have to vote today, then it's option number 4, but I would really like to see something that integrates these individual designs in a setting, and I don't think that's very difficult to do. In fact, it's very easy to do, and I think we should get an idea of that, especially when it's going to directly impact those streets, and it's something we're going to be looking at for a while. So.
Thank you. Let me just say briefly which option I prefer. I do like number 4 just for 2 reasons. Number 1, the reference to the historical consistency, both with the train station, with what used to be along San Fernando. Secondly, with the ease of maintenance. I do fear that option 1, although it's an attractive design, is just going to be a blank canvas for the graffiti artists that would love to introduce you to their neighborhood as you're coming into town. So, Mr. Quintero.
Well, option 4 to me does seem cleaner and a little better bed and certainly less maintenance. But I do agree I'd like to see it in color and maybe a couple of other variations of on the theme. I don't think we have to specifically stick to that. I like the idea of the triangle, though. I think it'll be easier to see. And then I think I would, the next time around, or maybe even before it comes to us, I'd like to have the neighborhood association, Pelham County Neighborhood Association, have a meeting with them, at least their board of directors, and just kind of run it by them and let them give you some ideas or some comments, and we can incorporate it and take a vote. And we need to move quickly, I hope. Early in January, we can get this puppy done and let's get going, because whatever we put there is going to be a lot better than what isn't there now.
Agreed.
But I'd like to have a meeting, have you all have a meeting with them. And
Mr. Draymond.
I would also like to ask if it's possible that we can, if it is that we end up voting on option 4, well, no matter what option we vote for, but if it appears like it might be option 4, I also would like to see a couple variations on this, so it's not just a wedge of cheese on a stick, in other words, and there's no way you would really know from this drawing. And I understand that this is not meant to be a detailed drawing, but as one council member, I haven't had the opportunity of seeing any other examples of any of this, so
Illustratives, understood.
Yeah.
You want a perspective drawing?
Yes, but I'd like something that's a little more detailed, something in color, and something that puts it in reference by placing it in
Landscape
in
material.
the landscaping, because, again, the landscaping that we're talking about now is significantly less than before. And the other thing is, just as is pointed out, this is going to be, this is signage for our city. It's going to be there a long time, and it should be right. And for it to be right, at least for me to cast an intelligent vote, I need something a little more detailed than this.
There's one other thing that's
So let me
mentioned.
summarize some of the points we're making, then I'll go back. Number is to come back with a color version of several variations of number 4, including different font style. I'm not sure if that's the generic font that popped in. To present those to the Pelinconi Homeowners Association. What else did we talk
Before
about?
we come back to the agency, and that they also be illustrative in color, set in landscape, so that you can see those
Lighting?
choices.
The rendering.
Rendering, correct.
Some
Lighting.
lighting options,
Uplighting,
Uplighting, okay.
terms of
base.
cost and engineering of that.
One other thing I'd like to know, Mr. Mayor, because it continues to mention in there, similar to the bus benches. Well, I drive there every day, and I'm trying to picture where those bus benches are sitting over there. They're there now on the...
Well, there's two sets of bus benches. There's the new ones that we've put in that are metal, that sit within the canopy, the bus canopy, which is on the east side. And
Okay, on the east side. I've seen those.
And
I'm trying
those-
to picture
and
them
then
on the
there's
west side.
There's the west side is, in the MTA right-of-way, they are basically concrete slabs just sitting in gravel.
So they don't exist yet.
They really don't exist yet.
So if they're going to be close in relation to the signs, it'd be nice to have the renderings show the two relationships, one to the other.
Mr. Yusefian, and then Mr. Raymond.
I think, Mr. Mayor, you pretty much summed it up. I think maybe the best thing to do is be more than happy to make a motion to continue this matter to last week of January, so the staff can have an opportunity to bring us the renderings and have an opportunity to also share the drawings with the Pelinconi Homeowner Association.
Mr. Before we move forward, I will second that. I just wanted to, that was one of the items that I think Councilmember Quintero mentioned, now Councilmember Yusefian has mentioned, but it was left off the list a moment ago, and that is meeting with the Pelinconi homeowners.
Understood.
I would also like to ask if some of the versions, or one of the versions or alternatives, could have a more, I think you were touching on it, a more vintage look to it. It's hard to know. Maybe this does. I don't know, but from what I'm looking at, I can't tell.
To recreate the historic, more
Well, yeah, and-
accurately recreate the historic look.
And you mentioned that it or to look like it does. I mean, you mentioned that it relates to signage that exists at the
GTC.
yeah, and so
Bring us some of those old photos, too, so we can
Okay, definitely.
compare them and throw our...
If you're down there, they're in front of the building, and they're round stucco columns, and they're made of wood, and they have a very Art Deco stylized font on them, and they used to be lit linearly underneath. I'll bring some pictures back.
We'll try and be more consistent with that theme.
So do we have all those?
or at least an alternative
Those,
that does.
Ms. Van Meiden?
The date in January is January 29th. That's the last Tuesday in January.
That's my motion.
Motion seconded to that date. Mr.
I have a
Quintero?
question. Once the decision is made, once we decide on January 29th, how soon can the contractors begin their...
That's a question I'm going to have to ask the city engineer to comment more fully on, since he's...
I should add, while he's coming up, the project is under construction now, the landscape itself.
Right, great.
The signage would be this timing.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, as Mr. Lanzafame indicated, the construction is underway. They started several months ago. The landscaping portion should be wrapped up sometimes in February, March. As soon as the council agency approves the option, the contractor will go ahead and proceed with ordering the materials and the fabrication. The contract's open till November of '08. That's to allow accommodation and ordering and installation of the new bus shelters on the west side.
Okay, great. Very good.
You could pour the foundation, depending if you need one or two
Absolutely,
footings.
we will do that, yeah.
You know that ahead of time before the rest got there.
Right. The lead
Obviously,
time
the
is
sooner-
basically the fabrication and the materials ordering.
Obviously, the sooner the better. I know that we've been dealing with this issue for years and years, so.
Understood.
Mr.
Yeah,
Starkman.
the contract's open to the end of the year, but timing-wise, Felicia, think probably by the end of the summer?
For the sign
Assuming
monument,
they come to a conclusion at the end of January,
that should easily be accommodated.
I would think within 6 months to have them installed, even with fabrication,
Yes.
especially if they're going to be this more simple design.
Yeah, if today we got a sense that option number 4 is the way to go, we can even start talking to the contractor and get them on board with the design of it.
I'd suggest
and the
we wait till
footings.
January and make sure it's pinned down, because you may get different feedback from Pelincone, minds might change, but at the end of January, I would think you're 6 months, if it's sort of a lesser involved design.
Just so Pelincone understands the difference in cost between the different options.
We will include the cost with the options.
$250,000 is quite a change.
Yes.
Let's take roll call, please, on that motion.
Councilmembers Graham?
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian.
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes.
Move to adjourn for council.
Second.
Council's adjourned.
Move to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn for the
I
agency.
have to remember that I'm no longer just a...
So moved.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you.
There must have been some magic in that